Welcome to Inside the Realtors Studio, interviews with industry leaders and professionals in real estate. This year, the Tucson Association of Realtors is turning 100, 1921 to 2021. We honor our history by conducting interviews of the past presidents of the Tucson Association of Realtors. We'll learn a bit of history by talking to the experts themselves. Today's past president is Dan Carapellucci. Dan spent 25 years managing Dan Carapellucci Company and creating a legacy of buildings, roadways, and utility projects throughout Western Pennsylvania. Dan worked his way from laborer to president of this 83-year-old family construction business and became a state and national leader in the industry. After departing the family business, Dan joined the real estate industry in 1991, where he was able to capitalize on his extensive expertise in business, construction, and property development. His tenacity in closing challenging deals earned him a nickname from his colleagues, Miracle Man Dan. In his first 2 years in real estate, Dan saw great value in continuing education and took so many classes that he was recruited as a real estate educator. He continued his real estate sales and education career after moving to Tucson in 1993, focusing heavily on his passion for education. Since that time, until his retirement in 2017, Dan taught well over 20,000 Tucson real estate agents, myself included, with the goal of improving the real estate industry by instilling values for ethics and expertise. Dan has held the ABR, CRS, GRI, and DREI Distinguished Real Estate Instructor designations. His leadership positions have included 1983 was elected president of the Western Pennsylvania Contractors Association. 1984 and 1986 served as president of the Pennsylvania Utility Contractors Association. 1982 through 1990, served on the Board of Governors for the General Contractors Association of Pennsylvania. 1986, served as Vice President of the Associated Builders and Contractors. 1998 through 2002, served on the Southern Arizona Housing Center Board of Directors. 2003 through 2004, served on the Greater Tucson Leadership Board of Directors. 2004 through 2006, served on the Arizona Association of Realtors Board of Directors, and in 2005 was elected president of the Tucson Association of Realtors. Let's give a big Inside the Realtors Studio welcome to Miracle Man Dan. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Steve. Could you have read more? Is that all there was?
Well, we do our best for the time constraints that we're under. So we do the.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's begin a little bit about our voyage about real estate before you were president. So when you came, I guess, well, let's say you were in Pennsylvania still when you first became a realtor, correct?
That's correct. 1991.
And so where did you hang your license at that point in time?
A local broker in Ligonier, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Oh.
And then
only there 2 years. Then we moved out here in 93.
Yeah. What was the draw?
What was the trouble?
No, what was the draw for Tucson? What drew you out here?
Oh, it was my wife. She was offered she became director of human resources for TMC.
Oh, hello. That's a good one. And so you did real estate there, and then you also did it here, but you taught a great deal of the time. So did you actually practice real estate here in Tucson as well, or?
Yes, mostly private, personal deals, etc. But when I'll tell you a little story. My first broker that I worked for here was Long with Rosie Coberline.
Oh, okay.
And walked out of there with a box full of stuff, that a new person gets. And I wanted to do three things when I got there. I wanted to get my master's in real estate, I wanted to sell, and I wanted to teach. Right? Well, the master's in real estate did exist in 91, but not in 93. And I didn't know that. So I put that, it became the Masters of Finance, then merged with finance, which was logical. And teaching became all right. Jim Hogan School of Real Estate, went with them. Rosie hired me. And then 2 weeks later, I'm driving up Pantano at Wrightstown, the corner there. There used to be a Wendy's there. And I was driving, turning the corner back toward the city, toward downtown. And I looked in that Wendy's and I could see her sitting there by herself. So I went in and took my box with me of all the things that she gave me. And I said, I quit. So I was with her. I was with her on 2 days. And that was it. She always tells everybody she fired me, but that's simply not true.
Well, we'll see if at some point we may be able to have that record settled from the other side too. So,
Yeah.
let's see.
That was it. Yeah, 91. You know, I figured if I was going into a new business, I'm leaving construction and going into real estate. And you should know something about what you're talking about in real estate. So I took seriously every single course that was available in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania. They had 3 different levels of finance. I mean, it was really good. I just got to know the business a little bit more without even practicing at that point. And and then I just started practicing. But the director of the school that I went to in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, stopped up in where I was working, and he said, "Did you ever think of teaching?" And I chuckled at him and I said, "I'm a dirt guy. I'm a contractor." And I said, "No." He said, "Oh, I think you should try it." So I tried it the next week and I fell in love with it. I'm on the drive back from State College, where Penn State University is. Just did a class. It was 10:30 at night. And I thought, wow, this is neat. I love this real estate and I love this teaching bit. And even the gal who sold us our house up in our last house in Pennsylvania, she looked at me at one of the meetings and said, "You know, you ought to be in real estate." And I chuckled at her also and said, "Dirt guy, same thing." And 4 months later, I had my license. So it was a good start. And then I come out here and I got my brokers right away and was able to practice, and I was able to where I teach new members and broker new members. So it was a nice little start. But yeah, a lot of education. And of course, that's my background. So as far as real estate is concerned,
probably out of all of our presidents that I'm doing the interviews, you will be the most highly recognized by the people who will be viewing the videos.
Yeah.
Just because you've taught so many people.
Yeah, I got it. And the fact that I was decent at it helps too.
Yeah. So let's shift over to your presidency. And so this was, you were in office, what year was it? Don't have it right in front of me. What year were you president?
2005.
2005. So were we in our current building at that point?
No. We were still on Swan. We didn't get in our current building until January of 2006.
Oh, okay. So not that far away.
No, it became we were done. We finished the building. It was a long haul. Kind of interesting. We asked got a meeting report from December 2nd, 2004. It was the first meeting of the building PAG.
Oh, okay.
2004. So that's when we started. We formed the committee at that particular time. We had Gary Best, Harvey Mortka, Dean Kotlow was the engineer, Sherry Snebley, myself, Steve Quinlan, Gary Hardy, if you remember Gary, and Tom Sloyan. So 2, 4, 6, 8 people on that committee. And that committee lasted for 16 months.
Wow. Well, they had a lot of renovation considering it was a Safeway supermarket, I suppose.
Yes, there was a lot of work involved with it. I can't remember the final number, Steve. It was 1.3, 1.4, I believe. I may well be wrong there.
And such excitement that Billy Mordka and his board actually paid the mortgage off this past year.
Hey, yay.
Yeah. So who was your CEO?
Didn't have one.
Didn't have one. Who was running the show?
According to our bylaws, if you don't have a CEO, you're president.
Yeah.
Runs the show. And we lost our EO, executive officer, in June or July of Mary Jane's tenure.
Oh, okay.
And so she was without an EO from, I believe, from June on through November.
Okay.
And then we didn't get it. And then started my tenure in November. We didn't get an EO until March, April, somewhere in there. And it was Steve Weathers. Do you recognize that name? Steve was the director for the Economic Society here
Okay.
in Tucson. But he was only with us 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh.
And then, yeah, things happen.
Was it something you said?
Probably.
So then you had to start the search all over again, huh?
Oh, the search went on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. And then we finally got that in December of 2005.
Wow.
I was out, Gary was in, and Gary started with the new director.
Okay, there we go.
It was a tough time.
Well, yeah, a lot of added extra pressure that most presidents don't feel, because they have somebody in place.
The thing is, people look at it and say, well, it wasn't too bad. We had 3 nice people to aid us with that: Sherry Snebley, Patty Richardson, and Shawnee at particular time.
Yeah.
And they performed well. It was tough on them also.
Yeah. So what got you involved in, from education and all that into being part of association leadership? What drew you into that?
If I ever remember who that was, I'm going to track him or her down. I'll tell you what, when you're in a meeting, don't raise your hand. No. The next thing you know, you're going to be president. But kidding, of course. Actually, it was someone, and I don't know who, but someone in the organization, the association,
approached you.
Approached me because it only had one name on the ballot for vice president. And they said, Dan, let's let us put your name on the ballot. We've done that, but next thing you know, I was vice president. So. And there I was. That's it.
There you were. Yeah. So during your time in being in the association leadership and that, did you have anybody that you admired or looked up to that was in leadership that you felt was like a good example? Or
yeah, not because I'm plugging along, but I was close to close to oh, for goodness sake, I just said her name before.
Rosie
Coberline, and Steve Quinlan also at that time.
Yeah.
And they were helpful.
Dynamite duo right there.
There were others, Steve. There were always others. And that was important. I mean, heck, I'm just walking out of the classroom into a position, and we made it through it, but it was difficult.
So
all these people here, and ton of work. Yeah. I mean, even when we were looking for the building, they say, well, I'm looking at square footage cost and how many people would use the building. Cost per square foot of education area, cost per square foot of total building, number of classes in 2003 and 4. I wanted to see what a history of it was. Cost per class per student, income per class per student, increased classes, all right, and et cetera, on and on and on. And I wanted that because numbers don't lie. People lie using numbers, but numbers don't lie. When we were looking at this major investment of time and money, the association for everybody, the numbers were right, then it should have guided us, and it did. It guided us to the right decision, which was to buy the lot and buy the building, of course, which was already there, but a lot of renovations needed. So, you know, we sold the Rescue Association on the fact that we're in a money-making situation, and we were, and it did turn out.
Yeah.
We brought people in, any organization in the area that could use our facility, et cetera, how much it would be, et cetera, and we decided to do it.
Yeah. And it's gone on right through COVID. So, you know, it's still money making from that standpoint. And, you know, with the addition of the Pearson View and us doing the testing in the back part of the building and that for taking that on, you know, and when I was president, it was a case of, all right, what's the highest and best use of the property? Because we were coming off of a bad time and we weren't yet solvent. So it's like, you know, the building's got to help support us. So, so during your presidency, do you have any accomplishments or any troubles that you ran into along the way?
Accomplishments and challenges. The building obviously took up most of the time. It would also have been fun to have an EO around, but that wasn't also. So I think that just getting through and doing what we did as an association together with other people pretty much accomplished. Were there challenges? Sure there were.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting because in terms of everyone else that I've interviewed at this point, you have the longest period of being without an executive director out of anybody I've talked to. Everyone had, like, you know, I had a couple of months because mine, you know, handed me his resignation at the end of my career, or end of my presidency. I was expecting.
Who was that?
Phil Tedesco.
See, I didn't know Phil.
Yeah, Phil came in at the right time. He was the right person for the job. He really righted the ship because he was the first person that we had hired as an executive director who had experience being one previously at another association. And so he came and really straightened us up financially, big time. He renegotiated the super contracts. He did all sorts of things that way. But I knew, I don't know why, but I knew at the beginning of the year, he was going to hand me his resignation. And come September, he did. So it's just, you know.
Well, that was a disappointment for you.
Well, so it was at state meetings and here's the letter. I'm like, well, I've been waiting for this. So, but he had a good gig that he went to because he's now the head of Rhode Island. So they're, you know, for their state. Yeah.
Cold up there.
It's very cold. So, did you have much experience with AAR or NAR committee work or anything along that line?
I was never on an NAR committee. I was on AAR committee, obviously, as a president. I was the only one I was really interested in, spent a lot of time with was fair housing, fair affordable housing committee. I forget what the years were, but I believe 2000, I was on the committee, 2001, 2002. I chaired the committee for those 2 years.
Okay.
So, and I always ended up on the education committee. I don't know why, but.
Strange how that happened, huh?
Yeah.
So any other thoughts about your term while you were in as president?
You know, you've never been in the old building.
Actually, I was.
Were you?
Yeah.
Well, of course, the old building, you know, the meeting room was rather small. And if we had both boards, MOS and TAR, there were some people standing. Obviously, wow. Very uncomfortable. And come on, we got to get out of here. And we did. It was a good thing. But one thing I said to the board, the very first meeting, I brought everybody a prize. I brought them a book And the title of the book was Execution. And you're going to ask a little bit later on what's my favorite word, and that's what it is. It's execution. You have to execute. You just can't read and know anything. That's one of the toughest things for people who all of a sudden are on committees or on how, whether it is powerful or not powerful, et cetera, but you kind of know how to execute, how to make things happen.
Yeah.
And I gave them all a copy of the book, 20 copies, and I asked them to read it. I don't know how many, I know a number of them did. So that's what we started with at our first meeting.
And I don't know when it happened, but at some point the MLS committee got split off on their own and the joint meetings ended because I heard they were horrendous at sometimes 5 hours long.
Yeah, we
Especially
weren't
for
into
Andy.
that on the real estate side.
Well, believe it or not, we're just about at the end of our interview. So as you saw, because you took a look at one of our other things, I'm going to ask 7 quick questions and I'm looking for 7 quick answers. And I believe you've already led off with what your favorite word was. What's your least favorite word?
It's actually a group of words, and you run into it because I hate to hear when somebody says, well, let's put it in committee. Okay, committee can work and it should work, et cetera. But some people use it as a whatever. But we've tried that before and it doesn't work. You try and you try, and whether you tried a year ago or 5 years ago, you try again. Different circumstances, different situations. COVID coming up, how many meetings that upset side of loss of lives. But if it doesn't work, then redo it with different people, different time, etc.
Oh yeah.
So execution, we were successful. There's no doubt about it. And just don't like to hear, and we tried that, it doesn't work. Try it again.
And so what turns you on?
People that truly know how to listen.
And what turns you off?
The discriminatory violations that still occur in civil rights. And obviously we're faced with tremendous amount of change coming in the next number of years. And depending on what you think or how you think, changes are needed.
Yeah.
That's my state.
And what profession other than real estate would you have liked to have attempted?
I always wanted to be a cop, not a policeman. I wanted to be a cop. But I didn't come to be a cop. I'll tell you what, when Tucson was doing a leadership committee, et cetera, and they still do it now at that time, but I was on that. I'm part of the committee.
They still do.
Learn, okay. And one of the things you had an option of if you wanted to do a ride in the police car. I don't know whether they still do that either, but I felt more for that police to get out of his car, walks up to complete strangers in another car. Anyway.
Yeah.
He didn't become a policeman.
So is there a profession that you're super glad you didn't attempt?
Politics. Politics. I was asked when I was 23 to run under one of the parties back in Pennsylvania, local, which would lead to, and I said, no politics.
No. Well, in closing, if you could do a shout out to anyone living or not in the real estate community, who would it be and why?
Well, it's going to be Rosie. And it's the first one I met, recognized she was extremely powerful. I believe she got here about a year and a half before I did, that 91 or 92. But she was my first gig here, even though it only lasted 2 weeks. Our friendship has lasted a long time. And if I need to talk with somebody or want to talk to somebody, I know I can give Rosie a call. But I also want to give a shout out to Hogan. Obviously, I spent a lot of time there, roughly 20 23 years teaching,
Yeah.
that Hogan's and their passion to educate, to uplift, even what our current, who's in Harrisburg for us? My goodness,
Judy Lowe?
Judy Lowe.
Yeah.
Even with Judy, when she first took her position as Sarah, one of the first things she paid attention to was the education end of it, education of it. So we didn't, we couldn't do classes anymore that were really not, I don't know how you looked at it, but still weren't really real estate. So if I'm learning how to lay out furniture in a particular house, everything, it really wasn't real estate. So it certainly could be an argumentative point, but the fact of the matter is, Judy, from the very beginning, was on real estate, was on education also. Hogan's have done a tremendous job, and watching Jim and Esther constantly putting in their time and making better classes, etc. It was a joy. 23 years.
Well, they've been a complete asset to our community, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, Dan, we're at the end. I want to thank you so much for participating.
I got dressed up and that's it. That's all we're going to do.
You know, it's like, you know, it's just like Vicky Cox Golder said, it lasted 7 minutes. I don't know.
Well, I already went 9.
Yeah. Well, JT is the gold standard. His lasted 35 minutes. He brought props. So, all right, I'm going to sign off at this point.